Adaptations, something that is very important to me as having personal experience having worked on the music on a couple of different franchises. Adaptations have been kind of a hit or miss in recent years, especially with the glut of content that has come out on streamers and the streaming wars and that sort of thing. Some have been fantastic representations of the source material, some have deviated quite a bit and have been very divisive for fans. So I wanted to talk about my top 10 upcoming adaptations that I'm particularly excited about, and kind of some of the concerns as well as the hopeful aspects of those productions. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Material Season 3, and the official Brent Week's companion album for a series Lightbringer that came out last year. So I wanted to talk about something I'm very passionate about, which is book adaptations. I love reading the books and then seeing them adapted by hopefully people who really care about the source material, who care about the spirit of the material and the author's intentions and the characters, and kind of doing justice to that and the world building and that sort of thing. In recent years, we've kind of seen a little bit of both, right? We've seen adaptations that have been fantastic and then some that leave much to be desired. So I kind of did some research to look at some of the top 10 adaptations in the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror space to try to figure out what would be the best adaptations and kind of what are the pluses and minuses of each one. So I'm kind of pulling up some articles here and I'm going to kind of flash some of these on the screen as I talk about them so you can kind of be able to look at those, and I'm going to leave links to the articles in the description as well so you can read more about them if you haven't heard about them and you want to know more about them, or if you, like me, want to dive into the source material first before they get adapted so you can watch with a critical eye, as I often do. So without further ado, let's look at the first one. And I just want to also preface that none of these are in any particular order. I'm not ranking them. They're just 10 that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with them. So without further ado, number 1 is Otherland by Tad Williams. Now, I've only read the first book, which was City of Golden Shadow. I absolutely loved it. I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the series. I'm hoping to get to them either later this year or early next year. But it was announced, I think, earlier this year or late last year. I think, yeah, it was December 13th, 2023, it looks like from this article, that Platige Image, who worked on The Witcher and Mount Devil, together with the Wheel of Time's executive producer Mike Weber, are working on a TV series based on those 4 books of Otherland. Now, Mike Weber he was kind of the brainchild for the Wheel of Time TV series. So if you really like that TV series, then this is probably very good news for you. If you didn't like that TV series, then this might be cause for concern, because as a lot of people felt, the Wheel of Time TV series kind of deviated from the source material, and it's very possible that will happen in Otherland. But here's why I feel that might not be such a bad thing. Otherland is such a complex and almost unfilmable tale that it seems like the best way to adopt it is actually to maybe adopt like a 3-body problem approach, right? The Netflix series where they combine elements from book 3 with book 1, but it was all in service of the story. And that may not be a necessarily bad thing for something as complex as Otherland. So I'm kind of waiting with bated breath to see what they do with it. But I think this is going to be a really good one, and I think it's going to be a very high level show. And so I'm really excited about this one. Let me know in the comments if you've read it, and if you're excited about this one as well, or if you haven't read it. I kind of always want to make this a dialogue to talk about these books and use that as a jumping off point as well. So that was the first adaptation. The second adaptation, I don't know if I'm most excited about this or if it's in my top couple most excited ones. That is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. Now, as you all know, I'm a massive Stephen King fan. I have the entire Dark Tower series. I've read it now twice on this, reread for the second time. It's changed my life in no small part of tackling obsession and what a singular vision towards a goal could cost you in the end. I just love the character development and everything like that. And I was a little concerned when I saw the movie that came out, I think 2017, starring Idris Elba. That was an abomination. It was just so bad. It was like 7 books into one movie. How is that going to go right? But luckily, we now have at the helm the guy who is the de facto Stephen King fan and the guy who's really good at adapting his source material. And I'm talking about Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan and his company Intrepid Pictures are adapting this work. Now, if you know anything about Mike Flanagan, you know he's also worked on Gerald's Game. He was originally slated to work on an adaptation of Revival, actually. He walked away from the project, and I get the feeling it's probably because he wanted to do the dark ending, and probably, I forget if it was Netflix or not, but they probably didn't want to do it. So now Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower, he's been working on it. They've been working on the scripts. And last I heard, I think the most recent update is that it's in development, but they're having weekly conversations. A lot of the stuff got slowed down because of the strikes, but I think now things are going to be full steam ahead. It's been his dream to adapt this. So a guy who's really good at adapting Stephen King material, and who also has dreamt of adapting it, of course, match made in heaven. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I think this is going to be something really special. Now, the third adaptation is kind of, I guess you could call it a couple of different adaptations in one. I'm talking about Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere. Now, a couple of different projects have been announced from that. One was a Mistborn film and a Stormlight Archive TV series. Now, both would be huge budgets, and of course, that's very difficult to get made. But I'm looking at an article here that talks about the latest news from Mistborn, and it looks like the Mistborn film has been in development, but has run into hiccups. Now, Brandon Sanderson himself has said that, they've run into some issues with getting funding because, these are big budget series and films. And it's hard to get funding for fantasy stuff. It's a high-risk endeavor for a lot of people, and especially because now streamers are trying to slash budgets, slash their respective workforces, and also kind of tamper down the amount of content that's being made. And then, of course, with the strikes, I think it'll be a while since till we see this. But I have been looking on IMDb Pro. I have the Pro account, so I can kind of see who's being added to my favorite projects. And I saw like a location manager was added to that project recently. So they seem to be doing their legwork still in the background, even if nothing has been formally announced yet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere, I think, is ripe for like an MCU style adaptation where you have these different films and TV series, and then things start to come together as these worlds collide. So how cool would that be? From a musical standpoint, of course, I'm very excited about the prospects of like having themes that tie into this giant Cosmere universe and what that would entail. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I hope you are as excited about it as I am. So that was my third adaptation. Now, I'm just pulling up the fourth one here. So recently, for those of you who are kind of new to the channel, I have been obsessed with Ken Follett's Century Trilogy, which charts 5 families as they make their way through 100 years of world history. Again, another thing that feels like unfilmable because it would be so expensive to do. It is so ambitious. It goes from World War I through the end of the Cold War. I think both of those things in general, it'd be just really hard to adapt. So I wanted to mention the Fall of Giants, which actually was recently announced. It was in February 21st, 2023, that William Boyd is set to adapt Ken Follett's Fall of Giants. So it looks like, it says, The Fall of Giants is the first novel in Follett's Century Trilogy and traces the tumultuous first decades of the 20th century through the lens of 5 interrelated families. So the project is in development at NBC Universal-owned Peacock, with the episodes and structure to be confirmed. So very early development at the moment, but that is very promising because I've always dreamt of having this thing adapted, and I think like as a TV series, you can actually do justice to the scale and scope of this thing. So that is my fourth excitable adaptation. Okay, so Robert McCammon, one of the greatest authors of all time, in my opinion. I would count him as one of my top 10 authors of all time. And recently it was announced, and this was as of January 19th, 2024, that Swan Song is being adapted for television from Monarch Media, and Greg Nicotero is going to be the executive producer, and he's going to direct the pilot as well. So Swan Song is basically about a nuclear holocaust and the aftermath, and kind of like, can humanity be salvaged? Is there a redemption arc for humanity, basically? An epic book, one of my top 10 books of all time in any genre, and Robert McCammon is a master character writer. I'd be interested to see how this gets adapted because, that's always the scary thing. When you have such depth of characters, you really have to do that part justice. You can make little changes to serve the story. That's fine. But you got to do the characters justice. Otherwise, there's no point. then it just becomes a disaster TV series, and that becomes very forgettable. So I'm really hoping that they'll do justice to the epic scale and scope of what Robert McCammon created with this. So that is the... Did I say there was a fourth adaptation? I think it was the fourth one. No, fifth one. Sorry. I'm trying to read this list and read these articles at the same time. My bad. Yeah, the fifth adaptation that I'm very excited about. So the sixth adaptation is for Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. So it was announced a few years ago, actually, that Project Hail Mary was going to be adapted. And then, slowly you started to hear more about casting announcements and things like that. Actually, Ryan Gosling is helping to spearhead this project. He's very passionate about it. And it looks like they even have a release date scheduled. So it's going to be released in the US on March 20th, 2026 by Amazon MGM Studios. And it looks like principal photography actually began on June 3rd of this year in 2024. So that is very exciting because this is, again, a very ambitious kind of space epic, but really about a solo person's journey, about loneliness, about trying to find a sense of belonging in the vast expanse of the galaxy. So really fascinating story. I always love stories that are both contained and epic as a juxtaposition, because then you can focus on character and then you can also focus on this massive world building. I think this is something that actually Ryan Gosling would be really perfect for. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that is the sixth adaptation that I'm super excited about. So pulling up my list yet again, the next one. So this is interesting. So for those of you who are familiar of the Wheel of Time series, the Wheel of Time series, whatever you think about the series as a whole, you could think it's an abomination. You could think it's the best thing to happen to the Wheel of Time series as far as its adaptation is concerned. Well, Amazon had been listening, and they have decided to make some prequel content. So there was a couple prequel movies that were in development. There is also an animated prequel film called The White Tower that had been announced, on July 10th of 2023. Now, the reason why I have concern about this on one hand is it is being developed by iWatt Productions. Now, iWatt is basically a rebrand of Red Eagle Entertainment, who, if you know about them, they kind of bought the rights from Robert Jordan in the early 2000s, I think, and then they basically got into a war with his widow, Harriet McDougal. They tried to keep the rights by putting a godforsaken pilot on at 3 a.m. or 1 a.m. or something on a Wednesday, and it was just terrible. So, anything that they put their hands on, it's always a little bit like, kind of look at it take it with a grain of salt. But why I'm excited about it is the original story is actually going to be written by Zach Stentz, who worked on Jurassic World and Thor and X-Men First Class. So he has at least a pedigree of writing great material, stuff that gets adapted in a big way. And I'd be very interested to see how he actually tackles this. And it's animated. I think, one thing that was a failing, I got a chance to work on the Wheel of Time Season 2. I was a project lead on the music team, so I was in charge of the music team for Season 2. So I am biased, I have to admit, about that season. But I will say that one thing that was lacking is, the epic scale and scope and the way the aesthetic of certain things look. Like, animated would be such a perfect vehicle for the Wheel of Time, especially the tone of it too. So I think that'll be very interesting to see how they adapt it from an animated perspective. So that is the next adaptation I'm really excited about. I think that was the seventh one. So the eighth one, pulling up yet another article, you can see a trend here. I've just been trying to do my research so I can kind of present you guys with the most current information that I have. So I fell in love with Blake Crouch. I actually found out about him from Mike's book reviews, and I've been very excited to kind of dive more into his work. But, Dark Matter got adapted as a TV series this year, and the one heartening thing was Blake Crouch served as a showrunner on it. And so he had creative control over the story's direction, how it was represented on TV. I haven't actually gotten a chance to see it yet, but I've heard it's really good. So Recursion is actually also being adapted, and not only just as a film, but as a TV series as well. A couple people have some first look deals with Netflix, and they want to adapt it there. So that's going to be interesting to see this very complex material represented in multiple formats. I'm curious to see what would be the best format for it. I kind of feel a limited series could actually be a really good boon for it, because the concepts that are presented in Recursion are quite massive and quite brain melting, I would say. So that would be a really interesting to do it, like an 8-episode miniseries or something. Could be kind of fun. So I don't know if they have a release date. Doesn't look like they have anything announced on this article yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it in regardless. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start kind of making maybe a monthly segment, or as adaptation news comes, I'm going to actually start doing pure adaptation news segments on this channel, just to kind of keep you apprised of updates as they come, because I'm kind of more privy to some of this stuff, just kind of being in the Hollywood industry and hearing things from people and seeing things as they get announced really fast. So if anything I can do to help kind of spread that message forward and kind of get us all excited about it, I'm very happy to do. So that was the 8th one that I'm very excited about. Now the 9th one is, okay, so when I heard the casting announcement and I heard that this woman was going to be an executive producer on it, I was super excited, because Joe Abercrombie has fast become one of my favorite authors of all time, and I've been looking forward to seeing his stuff adapted. Now, I did kind of scratch my head a little bit when I heard that Best Served Cold was the one that was slated for adaptation, because his Joe Abercrombie's First Law universe was something that I expected, hey, that would be a really good starting point, is the First Law trilogy. Maybe make that into a limited series or something. But more I thought about it, and after reading Best Served Cold, I'm like, oh, that's a great, clear in a way, running a perfect kind of perfect starting point for the First Law universe, because you have this female protagonist. There's a classic revenge story, but it doesn't go in the way you would expect, but it's still a contained story. So I think that as a one-off, that would be a really good way to test the waters, get audiences kind of reactions to the First Law universe. And there's First Law has such rabid fans; they all want to see this adapted well. And the fact that Rebecca Ferguson is going to play Monza is freaking fantastic, in my opinion. I mean, Rebecca Ferguson was, of course, in the Dune adaptations, and then also in the Mission Impossible franchise. So she is, kind of got a rich pedigree of working in the adaptation space, and I think she would be perfect for this. Oh, she also worked on Silo, the Apple TV series, which was the adaptation of Hugh Howey's Wool. So anyone like that, I am very excited that they're going to be involved. And also, actually, Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, is going to be, I think, I forget if it was the director of this. Yes. So that is very exciting as well. So I think this is in good hands, and Joe Abercrombie is going to be involved in the story direction. So definitely in good hands. So I'm very looking forward to that. And before I announce the 10th one, I just wanted to say, if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I really appreciate you all being here. It's just fun to talk about this stuff with you all. So thanks for listening thus far. And without further ado, here is the final one that I'm very excited about, and that is the sci-fi novel Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So it was announced a while back that it would be adapted, and then it was in development hell for a while. Development hell is actually kind of a term in the industry where things get optioned, but they're not necessarily greenlit by the studios, right? So then they have to make a case for it. Maybe they write a pilot script, or they write the first draft of the film script and that kind of a thing. And then if it gets greenlit, then the film is formally ordered by the network, or the episodes or the pilot or what have you. So it was kind of going back and forth, and finally it found a home, and that is with Lionsgate. Now, it looks like I'm just looking at the article here. So yes, it's going to be adapted by Lionsgate, and there's actually not too much more information on that. But let's see if there was an... Okay, so this was in 2017, this article, so this has been a while. But I have been seeing kind of an IMDb Pro, people slowly being added to it. So there are a few producers actually added to the page on the Children of Time. So that is a good news, because, some of these articles are outdated. Maybe they don't make any official formal announcements, but if people are being added to the project even this late in the game, that means that things are kind of moving forward. So that is always a good sign. And people are not usually added on IMDb unless they're actually confirmed for the project. So this is always a good thing. So that one I'm very excited about as well. So let me know, what you think about this list. Let me know, in the comments, if you have any dream adaptations you would want to be adapted, or if you're excited about any of these particular ones on this list. And I really appreciate you being here and listening. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. That's it from me for today. Be good to yourselves. Please be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.